Good evening to our listening audience, and I want to say welcome again to another exciting session of Share Your Story, brought to you by Palmdale Vision Center in Nassau, Bahamas. We are tuning in here, and this is a program that discusses health issues and talk about health challenges and different things that affect health here in the Bahamas and amongst people. And so last month was colon cancer month. And because we had another topic, we said we won't skip it, but we will bring it on in a different month. And so this evening is going to be an exciting evening and an exciting show because we have two ladies in the studio who will be telling their stories with colon cancer. As you know, colon cancer is a big problem even here in the Bahamas. And just to give a little feedback, it's a type of cancer. It normally begins in the large intestines. And, the colon is kind of the final part of the digestive system. This type cancer typically tends to affect older adults, but hey, we have somebody in studio today who's very young, and she is going to talk about her journey with colon cancer. So it can happen at almost any age. So I don't want the young to think that they're immune. It can happen at any age. And normally, if you've ever done a colonoscopy, what they're looking for are polyps, small growths that are inside the digestive system, mainly the colon. And what happens is, over time, these small growths, they call polyps, they can change and become cancerous. So that's why it's so important for you to do your colonoscopy to detect, to see if any of these small polyps are in the intestines. And if they're there, they want to remove them before they eventually can develop into colon cancer. Now, some of the symptoms that are normally associated with it, but these ladies will tell you about whatever symptoms they may have experienced. Normally, there tends to be a change in your bowel movement or habits. Some people may complain of constipation, diarrhea, or just changes in the consistency of their stool and their excretion. Some persons may report bleeding in the rectum or blood in your stool, and that's a huge, big one. Then some people have persistent abdominal discomfort like cramps or gas. And here in the Bahamas, everyone likes to talk about gas pain. Every diagnosis is gas. So we have to be conscious of that. Then some persons may feel like their bladder or their bowels don't empty properly. Some experience weaknesses, fatigue, tiredness, and then unexplained weight loss. But in most cases, you'll find that most people don't experience any symptoms until in late stage. And by then, the disease is probably so aggressive. And that's why it is truly a very, very important disease that needs to be highlighted, because in most cases, by the time you find out, the disease is quite advanced. And in most cases, they don't know what causes, but it's common in family history. If you have a DNA for it, chances of developing it as you age can occur. And it can just happen for no reason. So some of your risk factors would include, as you get older, of course, the Black race, African American or Bahamian, whatever. If you're from that, that particular, not race, but that particular genetic predisposition, the chances would increase. Family history, of course. And then inflammatory intestinal conditions over time. Some people have bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, all these things, colitis, ulcerative colitis. These all increase your chances of colon cancer. We talked about family history, and then, of course, diet. Low fiber, high fat diet. I remember my doctor saying to me, listen, increase your fiber in your diet. That is so important. Sedentary lifestyle. You don't want to get up and move, and a good way to push that bowel is to move. When you exercise, it helps to move your bowel. Then diabetes, obesity, smoking, alcohol. And they've also reported that radiation treatment from cancer previously can increase your risk of colon cancer. So it's so important for us to have our screenings, and then, of course, to change your lifestyle. And we will talk about that, and these ladies will talk about it as they share and talk about their journey. So listen, pay attention, and we're going to have a good time this evening. So right now, I want to welcome into the studio my two guests. Let's bring them in. Ladies, good evening. How are you guys? I'm just going to show this for one moment, banner, and then we will come back to the ladies. Talking about colon cancer awareness. And colon cancer has the blue color. You know, most of these cancers are identified by a color, and so colon cancer is the blue one. So when you think of blue, the ocean thinks that you think of colon cancer. But welcome this evening, ladies. We have in our studio Miss Andrea Dabble and Miss Denise Christie. How are you ladies doing?
Good evening, everyone. I'm well. Thank you so much, Dr. Jackson, for having me here on this platform and giving me this opportunity to once again share my story with the public. I truly appreciate this. Thank you.
Miss Lady Christie, how are you?
Hi, how are you? I'm okay, and you, Dr. Jackson?
Good to have you.
Good to be here tonight. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You know, I'm always busy, always having something to do, but I enjoy what I do. And I enjoy bringing people like you all to the forefront so that the public will know exactly what's happening. I'm going to start with, you know, Denise, they say what, age before beauty or beauty before age. We'll start with the youth, say. But let's, Andrea, I want you to tell the listening audience who you are, what you do, and what has your life been about before your diagnosis. So tell us who you are.
Okay, sure. I am a young, vibrant 30-year-old, and I recently graduated from the University of the Bahamas.
What did you study?
I studied media journalism.
Okay.
And I am not currently employed in my field, but before my diagnosis of colon cancer, I have been self-employed as an entrepreneur, CEO of Bahabra's mobile grading services. And I am a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I am also on my pathway to becoming a Toastmaster at this particular time. I love writing. In fact, I am in the process of publishing. Well, I don't want to say publishing. Let me choose my words properly. But in the process of writing a few books. Mm-hmm. One will also include my story, of course, after I've already completed chemotherapy. Mm-hmm. About me. So, with my diagnosis.
No, we won't get into diagnosis just yet.
Yeah.
No, I just want the public to know who you are, who you're about. You're a 30-year-old, been very active. Your own business. Self-employed, yes. I mean, all these wonderful characteristics and things. And I'm sure you were looking forward to graduating and moving on with your life and accomplishing your goals and dreams, weren't you?
I definitely was. I had some big goals for 2020. I thought it was my year, but some other things happened.
And Lady Denise, please let, you're a popular lady, but just let the world know who you are now, because you've been active and involved in so many things, but please let the audience know who you are.
Okay, my name is Denise Christie. I work with National Insurance Board. I'm a senior clerk there. I am also the president of the Family People Helping People with Dr. David Allen. And I also do counseling for FOAM with Candy Gibson. I work closely with a lot of women who are in crisis, domestic violence. I do a lot of volunteer work with many different organizations.
Speak up a little bit so we can.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I do a lot of work counseling with a lot of different organizations. FOAM with Candy Gibson. I do counseling with the young ladies there that has domestic violence and crisis. I also work with Dr. David Allen as the president of People Helping People, the family group, and I'm a senior clerk at the National Insurance Board.
When I met Miss Christie, Mrs. Christie, she was very active and busy, in particular in the family program with Dr. David Allen. She's been leading and spearheading that program for a very long time. And this woman has given a lot of her time and self to other people in service, helping. She's always trying to help somebody, you know. Every time I hear from her, Dr. Jackson, I'm trying to do this for this one or do that for the next one. Or so she has been actively involved in this community, sacrificing and trying to help others and so on and so forth. But, you know, she's going to later tell us how life has changed for her. Now, let's go back to Andrea. So, Andrea, you were looking forward to graduating. You had big plans for 2020. I don't know if you were dating anybody and maybe even considering marriage and all of these things, but tell us what happened.
Well, to comment, no, not dating anybody. And yeah, definitely I was looking forward, I'm still looking forward to marriage in my future. I know that that's still a possibility. But for me, the year 2020, when it came in, it was a very exciting year for me. Not only was I graduating from the University of the Bahamas, but I was turning 30. And we know that 30 is a big milestone in our lives. You know, it's like, for sure, I knew turning 30 for me meant like I'm a woman now. Like I entered into my womanhood. Never mind my 20s, I'm now 30. So I was definitely looking forward to celebrating my grand 30 year. But unfortunately, even before my diagnosis, we had the pandemic that we dealt with, and the pandemic affected my road to graduation in that we no longer had the experience of walking across the stage, celebrating with our family, our friends, for our accomplishment. Instead, everything was done virtually. So as it relates to my diagnosis, everything started the day before my birthday. The day before my birthday. My birthday
The
is
day
May
before the
18th.
big 30th.
The day before the big 30. It wasn't the surprise that I was looking forward to, but it for me was the beginning of discovering what became my diagnosis of colon cancer. So May 17th, I could remember going to the bathroom. I'm going to be very vivid
Graphic?
and detailed,
Yeah.
graphic. Yes. But I went to use the restroom thinking now I have to pass. And to my surprise, I passed blood. The toilet was filled with bright red blood. And the amount of blood was overwhelming and concerning. So I took a picture and I sent it to one of my doctors. And the next day, I was scheduled to go into GastroCare Bahamas to see Dr. Marcus Cooper, a gastroenterologist here in Providence. And when I went to see him, I was like so sad because I'm now in the doctor's office on my birthday, trying to figure out what was the reason for this blood scare. And
Now,
that was
stop right there a second. Before this episode, did you ever experience anything like that before?
before this episode. What I thought I had been dealing with was like allergies to different food items. So from time to time, it wasn't frequent and it wasn't intense on that level. But from time to time, let's say if I had crawfish or if I had dairy, like milk, just straight milk, or if I had, which in that case I had a burger, a beef patty. Like if I had certain food, then afterwards I would have diarrhea, and when I would wipe, there would be blood on the tissue, but
Okay.
it wasn't
It
the
wasn't as
amount.
severe. So you had
No.
started seeing some sort of blood symptom in your excretion
Yeah, but I also,
and
like I said, I
previously.
previously, but it was never severe. It was never in that quantity. It wasn't anything that was alarming because where it only happened as a result of eating certain foods, I thought I had allergies. I just thought it was an allergic
Okay.
reaction my body was having to eat something. So it wasn't like, yeah, no. That day was extremely significant because it was just blood. And which was what was more alarming was after doing the test, I did blood tests and various stool tests, all came back normal. So it wasn't at that moment that I actually discovered that I had colon cancer, because at that time, what I was hearing was ulcerative colitis.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time hearing it for me. And for me, I was like, I don't know what this is, but I don't have this. I rejected it straight off the top because I didn't even know what it was. So I went on living my life as normal. And what I did was I just made adjustments to my diet. I was thinking that, okay, so I realized there was a connection. If I eat the beef caused me to have the diarrhea, and then there would be some blood in my stool. So let's take beef out of your diet. So that's how I lived for the next few months until August of 2020, when Chadwick Boseman, Mr. Black Panther, when he passed away, flyers started to circulate on social media listing all of the different signs and symptoms. And my sister, she sent me one of those flyers, and I looked at the signs, and there were 5 signs on the flyer. And at the time, I was like, okay. I Googled one of them because I didn't know exactly what it was, which was pencil stool. So when I Googled pencil stool, I said, ooh, yeah, I got 4 out of 5. So the other 3 signs that I also experienced were from time to time the blood in my stool, the diarrhea, and then abdominal bleeding. The only thing that I didn't have was constipation, because I was the exact opposite with the diarrhea. So recognizing I identify with 4 out of the 5, I called the doctor's office back, and I scheduled an appointment to have a colonoscopy done. And this took place in September of 2020, exactly September 26th. And that's when I discovered that, well, not me, but the doctor discovered that there was polyps. Like there was like over 100 polyps
Wow.
in my colon. And he said that he biopsied them, and I was just like now in limbo, waiting on whether or not they were cancer or not. So the results came back swift. Within a week, I got the call, and everything since there was just crazy.
Your
It was,
life changed. Your life changed totally.
and totally it did. I felt myself having a breakdown in the moment when I got the call, because I was dealing with a lot at that time. I shared that my mom, she had an asthma attack, and I was on my way taking my mom to the hospital, and I got the call while driving in the traffic, and I felt time slowed down. And it's like everything became real in that moment. It's like, my God, I got diagnosed with cancer at 30 years old, colon cancer. Like, where did this come from? I have absolutely no family history. And since then, my doctors and we were aggressive with trying to cure, because for me, my cure option was doing the surgery and then doing chemotherapy, just as an insurance preventative method to make sure cancer ain't spread nowhere else. But because at that particular point, it wasn't a matter of trying to prevent me from getting cancer. It was already confirmed that it is colon cancer. So what I had to look forward to in the days that followed were multiple
No,
doctor visits.
don't. You hold on there. Hold on.
No?
We can give it to them in sections, okay?
Okay,
So
sure.
that's how you found out about your diagnosis. You
Yeah.
talked about you started having, and so, but think about it. A lot of times people, just like you, experience these things, but kind of
Mm-hmm.
self-diagnose, saying maybe it's related to this, and maybe it's related to that. And we go on living and acting and doing, not realizing something could be going on. So you brought up a good
Something
valid
simple.
point there that we're going to go back to when we talk about symptoms and things. I want to bring in Miss Christie at this point so she could begin to let let the viewing audience know what her story is and how was she diagnosed. Miss Christie.
Um, I went to the doctor because I had like headaches and stuff. So they decided they needed to do a brain surgery. So I flew over to Cleveland Clinic to do this brain surgery, what nobody in the Bahamas could have done. Prior to me doing that, I used to have a lot of pain in my stomach as well. I went over there, did the brain surgery, came back like 2 months later, and this pain got even worse. I went to my physician here, and she told me that she think I might have a bladder problem. So I said, "Wow, I had brain problem. Now I have bladder problem." So she said, "Yeah, I'm gonna send you to urinary doctor, and he is gonna check you and see if it's the bladder." So I went there, and the same day I saw him, he scheduled me for a surgery the following week. I did the surgery because the pain was very, very bad, and it was so heavy that I could hardly do much stuff. So I did the surgery. After doing the surgery, I thought the pain would have stopped. It didn't stop. It went worse. And I continued going to him like for about 3 months later. And he told me, "Listen here, you have something called interstitial cystitis. It's painful bladder syndrome. And only thing we could do for it is give you meds to control the pain." And I said, "Gee, I have to live like this with all this pain?" So he said, "Listen here, this is what it is. We're gonna control the pain for you, and that's the best we can do." So I went home, and it got like even worse. And I called him, and I told him that the meds wasn't working. So that night, I decided to go to a prayer meeting, and I went there. And after coming from there, I got worse. When I went to the doctor about an hour or two after I came home from the prayer meeting, 2 hours in the emergency room, they told me that, "I'm sorry to tell you, we did some tests on you, and you have stage 4 colon, liver, and lung cancer." The doctor, he looked like shocked, and he was so sad. He started to hold my hand, and he said, "I'm going to call my wife to pray with you." I said, "Don't worry about it." I said, "God get this." So he looked at me rather strange. So they said they have to take me in theater that night to do a colonoscopy, and they're going to admit me. A few minutes later, Dr. Roll, she is a gastrologist. She came in and she did the readings of my results, and she said, "Did they tell you?" I said, "Yes, I already know." So she said, "Why you don't look bothered?" I said, "I was to a prayer meeting tonight, and God told me I should live and not die." So she said, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to take you into surgery first thing in the morning." I went into surgery, and they did the colonoscopy on me, and it was confirmed that it had started from the colon and went to the liver, and had metastasized also to the lung. But they keep mentioning this word metastasis. I was lost because I didn't even know what metastasized. I thought it was another illness or something. So I said, "Can you break it down in English for me, please?" So she said, "Well, that means it's probably in your blood, and it's spreading through your body." So it went from the colon to the liver. It's on two sides of the liver, and it's also in the left lung. So I said, "You know what? God said I should live and not die. I'm not bothered. I have a seat right here. Let me talk to you." So she looked rather strange. She said, "Talk to me." I telling this woman actually, like, in other words, that she's dying, and she have to talk to me. I said, "Yeah, I want to talk to you." I said, I started to talk to her and tell her how God told me that I shouldn't worry about anything. And she looked at me puzzled, and then she started to agree. And I said, "I already got confirmation about this. That's why I'm not bothered." And from there, the next day, she scheduled me to to see a few doctors here in the Bahamas. And because I was misdiagnosed for such a long time by doctors here in the Bahamas, I was kind of scared and paranoid. So as soon as I came out of the hospital, I did visit the other doctors to hear what they had to say because I wanted to be fair. And right after that, I decided to jump on a plane and leave for the United States of America. Because for me, I wanted all of my options open. I wanted to hear a second opinion, a third opinion, and even a fourth opinion, because my thing now is like how I'm going to fight this, how we're going to fight this. It wasn't about where I've been and where I'm at. And I had to like block out everything mentally and decide to focus on getting better and how do I go about getting better. So a few minutes, I was, I cried, and because I'm only human, and I tried to figure out where that I went wrong. All these things start to get in your head. Family and friends came to the hospital crying. I thought somebody was dead. So they was hollering and screaming, and they was having such a holy time in this. I said, listen here, now I know how y'all can look to my funeral, so please don't snorty up my coffin. And then when y'all come to my funeral, so you're taking all of this, you finding humor. I said, sometimes somebody got to be the strong one in here because everybody in here crying like I'm already dead. I said, this ain't the ending of it. This is the beginning of my fight. And, I'm going to fight this. And because the two younger one is 16, one is 16 now. She was like about 13. Yeah, 13 going on 14. And the other one was like 8. And when I saw the baby and she was crying, I felt like, Denise, this is your fight right here because she don't deserve this. And one particular time she came into the room with me before I left, and she was crying and she told me she dreamt I died. And I cried and she cried. And then my other daughter came in the room and she was crying. So I hold her and I said, let me tell you something. I said, I'm not going to die. I say, I'm not dying, not now. I said, I'm going to be to your funeral. I'm going to be to your wedding. And when you get married, I come to live with you and your husband, and then you can get mad and throw me out and send me back to my house. So I ain't going nowhere now. So they both started laughing. And then, that was my cause to get up and fight. That was my fight back right there.
Okay.
So from then,
You've been fighting. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And now, if you listen to both ladies, a question somebody asked for Andrea was, how long were you having the symptoms before you went to the doctor?
When I realized I identified with those signs, what I did was I looked at myself.
No, when you, I think they meant when you saw that blood.
Oh, the blood scare?
Yeah.
That was just a one-time thing that day. It was just on that day, and I didn't have that blood scare in that amount since that day.
But you had answered that previously because I'd asked you. You had said that you were having little symptoms, but so you were
I was going to say that.
So how long that was happening?
I look back on my life and I asked myself within the last 6 months to a year, to be fair, to say, okay, this is how I knew I identified with those signs, because up to I didn't go no further than a year. For me, just knowing that I could identify with those signs on and off for 6 months to a year, I said that's reason enough for me to go ahead and do the colonoscopy.
Okay. Now let me ask you, what was your course of treatment once you were diagnosed? What was the next step?
Once I was diagnosed, I had to do a surgery. I was admitted into the hospital, Princess Margaret Hospital, in October of last year to do a total colectomy. And for the viewers,
meaning in the layman's terms, so
Yeah, I'm gonna break it down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what they did was they went in laparoscopically, I did not get the big cut down my stomach. They used small incisions, various points on my stomach, and they went in and they took out my entire large intestine and my rectum. So after that was done, the surgery lasted for, I have the point in cell because it was a long surgery. When I went in the hospital on Wednesday, my surgery was done Thursday. It was a 10-hour surgery. And I came to sort of kind of the next day, which would have been like Friday in the evening about 6 p.m. So I was out. I feel like for about 2 days. I was out for like about 2 days, and then I came to the next day. So, but when I woke up, which was so surprising about the whole situation, was I woke up with something that I didn't have before. I mean, they did say that they're going to give me a bag, and I heard a lot of talk about a colostomy bag here and there, but even after I Googled, nothing could prepare me for that moment. When I opened my eyes and I looked down and I realized like there was this thing attached to my stomach, I looked at it and it was like curious. I was like, what? This is different. And I had an ileostomy bag because that wasn't actually a colostomy bag. It's an ileostomy bag that they attach where they took a piece of my small intestine, created an incision in my stomach, and the stoma extended outside to allow the waste to come out into the bag because I was no longer using my anus for almost 2 months. So I was using the ileostomy bag in the meantime. And that in itself was a unique experience. It was different. At first, like I said, like it was shocking to see it. And I realized in that moment I had to learn to embrace my body on a different kind of level. Like people will always say, you know, you gotta love yourself, but that experience taught me to love myself on a different kind of level because you had to be so gentle, so patient. I had to be gentle and patient with myself as I went through that process and not scorn myself for the whole experience altogether, you know, but that lasted for 6 weeks approximately, and I got the bag reverse in November. And since then, they started me 2 weeks after my reversal on to chemotherapy. Everything
So,
happened swift.
so you did chemo. How long did you do chemotherapy?
I am still doing
Okay,
chemotherapy.
so you're on
They,
chemotherapy.
yes, ma'am, I'm still doing chemotherapy. I have to do 12. I have to exhale because I'll just say off the bat, I don't like it. I
Nobody
honestly,
does. It's. I
nobody,
was talking with somebody
uh,
yesterday, and their experience with it is just. I said it's poison, pretty much. Chemotherapy
it,
is poison. It's
yeah,
out to kill, good and bad.
Yes.
So
yeah. I realized like before the chemotherapy, the sickness was physical, but like dealing with chemotherapy, it's a lot of mental struggles going on because I think every part of me mentally rejects the whole idea of doing chemo, but I've already had so much conversations, and the expectation is for me to do and complete chemotherapy. So I feel like I had no other choice, and this is something that I have to do. And once I'm done, I
how
am
many treatments have you had so far?
so far I have had 7. I have 12 in
Okay.
total to do. So I should be done, God's will, in June of this year. I should be completed.
Denise, tell us about your treatment process, my dear. And it's an interesting one, but let the audience know what you have had to endure and what you are enduring at this point.
Well, I stayed in the hospital when I and it was in 2019 February. I was in the hospital for like 2 months. They did every test on me my body could ever take. We decided to do, because they have to go before the medical board to decide what to do with you before they make any decisions on you. A whole group of doctors have to come into agreement on the decisions that have to be made with your form of treatment and care. So they decided to do chemo. They told me 24 rounds originally. And then they told me that they will have to do a surgery where they repair my colon, cut the two parts of my liver in the front and the back, and then they do a long surgery. So I did 12. I came home in Nassau because my husband had died. And I decided to do my chemo here. And I was going through so much at the time. It was like trying to break me down, but I had to like focus on, Denise, what your fight is. Your fight is either you're gonna fight cancer or you're gonna fight the cares of this world. So what you're gonna do? So I had to drop everything and anything that was negative in my life, and I had to focus on dealing with fighting cancer and dealing with chemo, because chemo wasn't at all. Chemo was like you sending me to the gallows every other week. And before I could catch myself, I'm back to the gallows again, like you're killing me over and over. So when I was done with the 12, I came back to the Bahamas, spent some time with my kids, and then I left back for the US in September to do the surgery. What they wanted to do, a double surgery at one time. That's where they cut me from my chest straight down like a baked potato, opened me up, and repaired everything. The first half of the surgery was when they went into my chest cavity, and they decided not to touch the lungs at that time, but because there was a lot going on with the liver, so they cut the liver in the front piece in the top area of the diaphragm, and then they had to go to the back to the end part of the liver, and they had to cut that part, and then they had to close up that part, my chest, to see if everything was working okay. And then they did the second half where they reconstruct my colon, and they had to move a patch which had metastasized to the groin area. So when I was done with that, I looked like Frankenstein. I was stapled straight up from the chest straight down. It was very, very painful. I was in intensive care for a few days. When I was done with that, I decided now I need to go home and spend time with the kids. That was
Fix your microphone.
That was a real painful ordeal. You know, you could imagine having staples from your chest straight down to your groin area. So it was a lot. It was a lot going on. And I came home because I wanted to spend Christmas here with the kids. And when I was done, I was trying to recuperate. And then I went back to the US in January because they wanted to start more chemo again. I started to do the chemo in January of 2000, and 2000 I did the chemo. I started in January, and I did it up to the week before March, and then the pandemic came. So we had COVID, and everything shut down. And I as soon as I had a window, I came back to Nassau, and I couldn't leave no more. So the tumor on my lungs, what they had left, it started to grow and move. So my doctors over in the US was very worried about it. So they wanted me to come back to the States to try deal with the tumor, which was fastly moving. I couldn't leave Nassau because everything was shut down. And I was kind of scared to catch COVID and have a lung problem at the same time. So I decided to stay here and let a doctor here locally remove the tumor. After the tumor was removed, then they told me that I have to do chemo again. So I had to muster up myself to do chemo again last year. I did not hear from the doctor until late. I did the the surgery like in June. And then, no, it was in May that I did the surgery. And then September, that's when I'm running down the doctors to find out when I do this chemo. I didn't get through to the doctors that like I wanted to, but when they did check me in October, the tumor had spread and I had developed more tumors inside the lung. So now, with this period of me waiting, the ball was dropped. So now my course of action is not any more surgeries. For now, I have to just do chemo. During the Christmas time, I started to have, this was the first week of December, I started to have this feeling like I was drowning every time I sleep. And it was a lot of pain in my chest at the same time. I was in the US at the time going for my physical. And I got so sick, I ended up in the emergency room. This was prior to Christmas. And they found out that I had fluid in my lungs, which they had to remove. So I went and I got it removed. It's like 2 bottles of fluid. I couldn't believe that much fluid come out of a human lung. After they removed the fluid, I started having little pains again in my chest. So the doctor over there told me that I would have to start chemo immediately again. I did my first one December the 29th. That was horrible. That was stronger. And it was a different type of chemo because they had changed my med. My body wasn't used to it. So I had to be admitted into the hospital. So the whole of, from December the 29th to, no, it been September the 30th to January the 7th, I was hospitalized in the US. Then I had to come back to the Bahamas because my kids was worried and everybody here, the family and everybody was upset. They was wanting to fly over there. And with all of this going on with COVID-19, I told them I will come home instead. So I've been home since, and I've been trying to do chemos, but this set of chemo, what they've given me, is new to my body, like I said, and my body isn't accepting it at all. Every time I take it, I'm in the hospital for like 9-10 days after the chemo. So I'm getting beat down to the ground with this set of medication. Now, just recently, my doctor and I had to sit down because it was so bad till I wanted to die. I was in the hospital and I wanted to actually die. And that's the first time I said I wasn't giving up, but the pain and the sickness was so bad. I just thought I would just be better just dead because I said there's so much going on. Chemo is horrible, and having to choose between chemo and having to choose between meds, like just to keep out of having pain and dying, is a choice. Like you're back up against the wall. If you do the chemo, you sick like a dog, and you don't have any window or much window for looking healthy and being healthy. The windows are very small. Like you get a week of looking okay and feeling good, and then you back to chemo again. And either that or is either take meds for the pain and just die because there's nothing you're taking to fight the cancer. So that meaning you're gonna die. So you don't have much choices. So right now I am doing chemo, but it's hard. Like trust you me, I went to my doctor and told him I wasn't gonna do it anymore. But now we're to the point now, well, Denise, I'm not gonna let you do that. You're gonna do chemo. So like I said, I wouldn't wish cancer on anybody, not even a dog, because cancer, I was like, they have all these different medications for all these different diseases, but why cancer have the worst medication? For
Well,
cure, and it even ain't a cure.
no, it's a life-threatening illness. That's the reality. Cancer cells are life-threatening cells. They are cells that come to take over the body and to take you out. And the only way they can try to minimize it is by chemotherapy, chemical therapy. And chemical therapy is pretty much poison that is used to destroy cancer cells. But keep in mind, while it's destroying the good, the bad, it's destroying the good cells. And so as I listen to you and as I'm listening to Andrea, my heart goes out to you ladies, because you're living with a disease condition at this point. It's not that, it's curing the disease. It's trying to minimize the cancer cells. And so that onward process of chemotherapy can be so debilitating. And I think both of you are in different phases. Andrea is a bit younger also. So therefore, her body and her immune system could fight better. Denise, you at a point when you were diagnosed, yours had already metastasized to major organs of the body. Anytime that liver is involved, that is a major problem. And so we could understand in your situation, they're trying to minimize and keep you comfortable and try to say, but the question with cancer and treatment is always quality of life. And that's an individual decision. Each person, depending on what they're dealing with and what is going on, they have to have that conversation with their doctors and their family as to quality of life. Do I continue these treatments just to say I am alive? Or do I say, Lord, I'm just going to live out my time the way it is? And then also pain is a major factor for some. Some people may not have pain, but others are living with severe pain. And so, Denise, yeah, my heart is full as I am listening to you. Now, Andrea, your situation may not be as severe as Denise's, but you are on chemotherapy. What are they saying after chemotherapy? What hope is there?
When I get asked that question, it just puts me off a little bit, because I want to say that I'll be in the all clear. I want to say that at my last treatment session, one of the nurses, he said to me, he's like, we'll see, depending on what the doctor say, hopefully. So I am just hopeful that after I complete my last round in June, chemotherapy will be behind me. I forgot to mention something about my diagnosis. And I tested positive for a gene that's called familial adenomatous polyposis. Mm-hmm. And that's actually troubling, because having that gene, from what I have researched and understand, it makes you susceptible to another kind of cancer. My fingers are crossed as well, because I have screening next month that I have to do on my thyroid, because it's about 25 or somewhere around there % chance of being pre-exposed to thyroid cancer. And the one thing that troubles me with my process of chemotherapy is, since I started, I felt like a lymph node here in my neck. And every time I'm on that treatment, it's like you could feel it more. It's more pronounced. And that's like a possibility, but nothing that I try my best not to think about it. I wouldn't really know until I've done my screening next month for that, for my thyroid. And then in June, hopefully it's a thing of the past.
Now, let me ask you something, and Denise could answer, because you're both in different phases. What has your diet been like before, and what is your diet like now? And normally doctors would say when you're doing chemotherapy, you try to eat anything. So what has your diet been like?
Right. The thing is, I'm a foodie. I love food, but I'm very selective with the kind of food that I eat. Like before my diagnosis, I lived a rather healthy life, and I was very conscious of different things that I ate. So red meat in itself, I was never really a fan of eating a bunch of pork or anything else like that. I'd watch. I was to the point where I was actually counting calories at some point, because I was more so health conscious. I used to exercise often. Definitely my fruits and my vegetables were all staples inside my diet, and I ate with minimum starchy foods. So I always watch my portion and my intake as it relates to eating like carbs. So I didn't have a bad diet per se, because I do know that that's a factor for other people that don't have the gene. Like you can be like your diet will influence your diagnosis with colon cancer. So for some people who don't have the gene, it can be prevented by just how they eat. They eat less of those fried foods, those fatty foods, and red meats, because the red meats is what cause the polyps. So for me, I was always conscious and aware of that. And since my diagnosis, I think the biggest thing is like my body is still trying to adjust. I feel like it's like going through that phase like a baby would, learning exactly what works and what doesn't work, what stays down. Because for me, not having a colon now, it's like any little thing causes my bowel to break down and causes me to have the diarrhea. And it's one thing to have diarrhea, and it's another thing to be on chemo and have chemo associated diarrhea. So I'm constantly watching what I eat, and the worst part is it's like I was warned against eating a lot of stuff that have antioxidants in it, because it counteracts with the chemo in my case. And I'm like, from my research, it doesn't work in my favor per se, because those are the food items that I do need to be taking. Like with a high
And
carb diet, you find that they are high with antioxidants, but it's the reverse.
counter
With the
and
chemo,
see,
I have to minimize the
you bring out a good point there, because antioxidants supposed to be good to minimize these things. But now that the fact that you're having treatment for cancer, it's not,
yeah,
it should not be a part of your
no.
diet. And so you have to pay attention to what people telling you too, because payments like to tell you, oh, eat this, try this works for cancer, and so on and so forth. But you really have to educate yourself and be conscious of what will work for me and for my body, because what will work for you probably will not work for
Uh,
Denise, tell us a bit
I
about
agree
what your
Yes,
diet,
110%.
most definitely. Well,
even before you were diagnosed,
when
Denise.
before I was diagnosed, I grew up in a Seventh-day Adventist background, went to the church. So basically, I wasn't a fan of red meat. I only eat chicken and turkey. Um, and I eat a lot of vegetarian food as well, growing up. And as I became an adult, you know, you stick to a certain regimen, different food. You don't really bother much with certain foods. And I try to eat healthy as much as possible back then. And I sat down, and when I was diagnosed and I was doing treatment in the US, and I sat down with a few people at the clinic, and I spoke to people, and they were vegan, they were um, vegetarians and all of that, and they always eat perfectly well and all of that stuff, and they still end up with cancer, and they couldn't believe they have cancer, and they ate so well. And I was like, I can't believe that either. And I never thought of red meat, and they said red meat was, a factor in this. So I did it all over again, and I started eating plant-based stuff. It's very expensive, trying to eat healthy and pay for chemo treatments and all these other stuff and doctor. So I did follow all the regimen. Everybody told me, oh, eat this, drink that, do that. I think I tried everything there was to be tried. Uh, and for cancer that was sent to me, they send you these stuff on WhatsApp. Try this. Every little thing they get for cancer, they send it to you for you to try it. So I was the guinea pig for such a long time, and still. Um, and I do the quinoa. I try to cook. I went to Miss Hannah in Carter Avenue to teach me how to do the little vegetarian cooking classes and stuff like that. And even now, like when I do chemo, I realize that the things that I eat before my chemo, like all these healthy stuff, when I do the chemo, a lot of them I can't eat because my
And isn't
body is
that
so weak.
interesting? It rejects it.
I need to eat the chicken. Yeah, because I was not eating meat at all. Then I decided to go on fish only. And then like when I do chemo, I have to eat the chicken because they say your body needs protein. And you lose a lot of all of your body, all the nutrients that you try to gain
Mm-hmm.
to take the chemo. Everything is wiped out in 1 minute as you take that chemo. Everything is gone. So you like flatline because you have diarrhea, you have vomiting, you have nausea feeling. You're on the floor looking like a dog with a pan in front of you. People don't know the ugly sight of what you go through when you doing the chemo and the effects, the side effects that you have. With this, you lose all your pride on the ground, just vomiting all night, sleeping with a bowl in the bed at you, vomiting. Um, and you cannot eat just vegetables and plants when you're at this point. You need anything you could grab your hands on to build your strength, to get your energy back, and to fight in mode because you lose your way. You lose your way because you're losing weight. You're losing, when you go on the scale after every treatment, you drop a few pounds here and you drop a few pounds there. And then you don't want it to get to the point where you're getting worried now you're losing all of this weight. So you have to eat stuff to give you the energy and the strength and the vitamins because not only in the morning I get up, I have like a routine where I take all my supplements and then I have to take pain pills. I wear pain patches, and it takes a while for me to get out of the bed because I have to, first of all, after I then get up, open my eye and pray and thank God for this brand new day for me being here. I have to check with my body and see where my body is at because I can't put my foot on the ground and I know where my body is at because every day isn't the same day for me. Every day is a different fight. And every day my body goes through different things. So I have to listen to my body more than I used to back then. Um, I used to always be busybody, just doing so much for people, going around checking this, and I had all this energy. The energy is not there anymore like it used to be because I have to build my energy up before I could make a move. And by the time I said and do one or two things in the house, I then tired enough to rest. I find myself taking naps in the day when I never used to nap in the day. I have to take 2 and 3 naps to catch myself. So that
Remember,
diet there work.
yeah, yeah, oncologists will tell you once you're on chemotherapy, yes, they would want you to minimize sugar as much as you could, but they will tell you eat whatever you can eat because chemotherapy
And
is
dairy.
going to strip the body. Yes. So if you find something, I remember when I did it, believe it or not, the only thing I could have stomached during that time, my husband had to have that there for me when I came home after chemo, was 3S cinnamon whole wheat bread, coconut whole wheat.
The rolls.
The rolls, I could not stomach anything else. And so that was my meal. I just would eat on that and try to cope and deal with it. But for both of you, I know it's not easy. And then for you, Denise, with them having to try different types of drugs on you and newer drugs are coming out and pretty much the side effects of these drugs. Did you lose your hair, Andrea?
No, ma'am. I would say for me in my case, as it relates to like my diet, I was praying. I was praying, asking God, please don't let me lose my appetite, please. Because prior to doing the chemo, when I was in the hospital, I experienced all that vomiting, not being able to eat. I was in there for like 2 weeks and they barely had me on liquid diet. I
So what
lost
did you
like
look like? You
21
lost.
pounds. I lost,
Oh.
yeah, like 24. I lost 24 pounds when I was in the hospital in 2 weeks. And the issue for me was I wasn't eating. And like I mentioned earlier, I love food. I really love food. Food is a big part of my whole success story, even now on my journey. And I'm so grateful I did not lose my appetite. So although I am mindful and I'm extremely conscious with what I eat because I understand if I use curry, I guess it has underlining pepper in it that causes diarrhea. If I use the tomato paste, high in acid, the lime I have to avoid it, the garlic I have to avoid it. Like I understand what I have to avoid, but my diet, like I haven't lost my appetite. So because of that, I haven't actually lost weight either. I'm the
Okay.
reverse. I've actually gained a few pounds on chemo. And yeah, when I go to do my chemotherapy, they tell me the last time they had to go up on my treatment. They had to like add more because they said every time you gain weight, you they increase your cocktail, so you get more
Yeah.
treatment when you gain in weight on chemo. So in my case, it's not like I'm losing weight because I don't have the loss of appetite and the vomiting. I have the reverse, which is the diarrhea. That's the biggest, and the neuropathy thing going on. That's the biggest thing. No, I didn't
Tell
lose
them
my
what
hair. They
neuropathy
told me
is.
that my hair. Boy, I still learning in details about it, but it's nerve endings in your body. Like it's triggered.
Fingertips.
Like so, in my case, yeah, my fingertips, and something strange is happening to me. I don't fully understand it. I explained to the nurses that I can't take cold. Well, they did tell me too to avoid cold because the chemo
Yeah.
that they have me on, it reacts with the cold temperatures. So I can't drink
Mm-hmm.
cold drinks. And sometimes it's like a struggle with drinking liquid to the point where my water, which is supposed to be room temperature, I'd have to put it in the microwave for like 10 or 15 seconds to bring it down just to be able to swallow. Because when I try to drink anything, and it's only with drinking, when I try to drink any
Yeah.
liquid that has a little bit of chill to it, it's like I swallow bone fish, the fish from the bone, and it's cutting my throat every single time. So that's one of the I don't know why I'm experiencing it, but it's on this
Yeah.
would be the right side of my neck every single time. I hate it. And then the
I have
in
that.
my nerve endings in my finger.
I had
Denise?
that same effect. I was on that med. The med with you on. I didn't lose any hair. Um,
Hmm.
and they tell you don't eat nothing cold. Don't go near the fridge. Don't drink nothing cold because it closes up the muscles in your throat, in your esophagus. It starts to close it up. It feel like when you touch something cold, you feel like you get electrocuted. Like you quickly move your hand away from
Hmm.
it. I was on that and I didn't, you know,
Yeah.
I hated that because everything, even if the AC on in the room, I can't drink the water in the room temperature. It's nothing called room temperature if the
Yeah.
AC is on. So I hated that because I wanted to sneak ice cream every now and again and I couldn't eat none. So that was, that was a no-no for me. But the meds that I'm on now, um, you don't lose your hair completely, but it gets a little thin. And that's why I just cut it all off, see it all off, because every time I touch my hair, and I realize this in the hospital when I touch my hair, like I look on the pillow, I see like hair on it. So I said, you know
Um,
what? Yeah, let me
It's
just
thinning.
cut it off. Yeah, cut it off because it's gonna grow back eventually. I never had a problem with my hair was growing with the chemo. The med with you on, it was growing with that. And I had my appetite never changed as well. That did me pretty well. This one, my appetite didn't change, but like I said, the vomiting and all of that slows down everything. Because you can't eat when you're vomiting. You eat, you're bringing up everything, and it tires you out. So you don't even have the energy to eat after that. But this one is it when it hit my body, all of my skin became dry, and it was like dust coming off of my skin when I dust my skin off. Um, it just shriveled up my hands and my feet. I don't have any feeling to the bottom of my feet from my knee down. It's numb, like you said, it's neuropathy. The nerve endings are like damaged. They say it comes back after a while, but with me having to do chemo all over again, because I thought it was gone, but it came back. So now I'm doing chemo all over again. So I'm experiencing the neuropathy even before it actually left. It's like doubling up now because it never really left. So
What about memory, ladies? Has it affected your memory in any way?
yeah, I think so. My explanation for memory loss, I just tell them, well, I have chemo brain, so I can remember that.
What about you, Andre?
Believe it or not, even though I'm 30, my memory is not really the sharpest. I guess I remember what I want to remember. So the only thing that happens, and I do the same thing. I say, child, that's the chemo. Like I would mix up my days. I think like that's the only thing that'll happen. Like I legit would feel like it's Thursday. Like I feel like when it's Thursday, I'm going through that whole entire day thinking it's one day, and then they're like, "Trey, what you talking about? Today is not Saturday." Like it's just a little disconnect with the time. But
Yeah.
I know truthfully that ain't really the chemo. That's just me not checking. But
Well, you can always use it as an excuse.
yeah.
As we begin to wrap up, ladies, Andrea, what advice would you give to younger people in terms of their health and in terms of taking care of their bodies and that sort of thing at this point? Because as you said, you're 30, looking forward to your birthday, and you ended up in a doctor's office. And when you got your diagnosis, your entire life took a different shift because you're now more concerned about dealing with your health and putting everything else on hold because that's priority. So, what kind of advice would you give to young people out there?
I would start by saying, don't diagnose yourself. We love to do that. The young and the old. I think it's a Bahamian thing. We experience something and we think, oh, before we actually go to the doctor, we tell ourselves and we tell everybody else we have one thing and the doctor has never confirmed it to be so.
And what about the people who tell you, take this child, do this child, take
I
that?
was going to say that too, although people do think that the bush medicine, it serves its place, because for me along my journey, I blocked out the alternatives. So when people would come to me and say, Andrea, this, that, because I wanted every reason and I needed every reason to stay steadfast with chemo, I blocked out that. So I would say to young people, stop thinking bush medicine for every single thing.
Now, let me ask you something. Did any of these people have colon cancer at some point who came with their remedies?
Well, no, they didn't.
That's
Most
what
of
I'm
them, they
saying.
never really do. They just came across something or they heard a word from here and there. And because they know you're going through something, this is the answer, the all in all answer. And I don't knock bush medicine because I grew up on it as a child. But I would say that everything has its place. So, especially to the young people my age, don't diagnose yourself. Stop thinking everything is cured just by means of bush medicine. Seek medical, professional help, and find out from the doctor firsthand exactly what it is. I think that young people, and stop thinking everything is about money. I know a lot of times it really is, but there's always another option. And I know that on my journey, so many people reached out to me and hesitate and did not go into looking to find out exactly what may or may not be wrong with them because they didn't have the money. But go anyway, ask questions. The same doctors that operate and do everything privately, they also serve in the public sector as well. So to the young people, to the old people out there, if you don't have no health insurance, don't use that as an excuse for you not to check on your health, not to take it serious and find out. And if your body is saying something is wrong, pay attention to it.
Denise, you are at a different phase and stage in your journey. What advice would you give to the and in your case you were misdiagnosed. So what kind of advice do you give to your listening audience at this point in time?
I'm a person who, if my finger hurting, I go to the doctor, and everybody know me. I stay in the doctor office. I go there just to visit them and heal them. If that's just me. They say I feel good when I'm in a doctor's hand. That is the truth. But I did it all. I went to doctors. I was diagnosed wrong. But my thing was, I was persistent about finding out what exactly was wrong with me. If you have pain in your body, it's obviously telling your body something is wrong. And you shouldn't settle for, oh, we're going to give you pills or this is what it is. And we just stop at that. You should always be looking for something other than just that one answer to that question. What you need solved, because nobody should endure pain like that and don't know exactly what's going on. Because sometimes, you know, they they are only doctors and they make mistakes. They make human errors, and it's good to keep checking until you get it answers to the question. Because a lot of people they see doctors all the time and go to them for questions need to be with questions that need answers but don't get it, so you keep searching until you get that. Don't wait till they said 50 is the age when you do you do a colonoscopy. Don't wait till 50. you know you don't have to feel that something wrong, but get a check just because you could get a check. And you don't want anything to happen, because if I had done one of those earlier, I would have catch this in the right stage, you know, and it wouldn't have spread so far. But when I found out what it was so far gone. It was like stage 4. Um, check out your body. Your body telling you something, listen to your body. Be in tune with your body. Sometimes we ignore our body because we don't want to face the music, but don't ignore little signs and simple things that you may see going on. Because if I could note back, like Andrea said, I remember having going to the bathroom in the past and seeing little funniness, but I ignored. I totally ignored because I was thinking, oh, that's just probably something I eat was red or something I eat was mixed up. And then I don't see it again, so I'm good. You know, check with your body, be in tune with your body, and check and be persistent, and don't wait till you reach 50 to go
And
and get a colonoscopy.
one of the important things we have to continue to highlight is high fiber diet. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
minimize fats, minimize sugars, but high fiber diet. Now that business of meat and so on and so forth. Yes, red meat, they say minimize it too, but you definitely need fiber in your diet. Fiber helps to push the byproducts along in the diet and not get clogged up amidst the cells and tissues in there and start to cause other problems. I'm going to read this poem that was written by Island Whispers. It says, Colorectal Cancer and You. It says, colorectal cancer is a disease that can be cured if detected at an early stage. This requires that you have regular screenings because your risk increases with your age. Don't be ashamed to talk to your doctor. Let him know if something does not seem right. He can only help if he knows your symptoms. Together, it is something you both can fight. Any signs of rectal bleeding and anemia should be addressed without delay. An increasing loss of appetite and weight are also symptoms that come into play. The life you live can be a contributing factor to your predisposition for getting this disease. Reduce your intake of red meat, fat, and alcohol. Stop smoking, lose weight, and exercise, please. So go ahead and schedule that colonoscopy. You've been procrastinating for far too long. Keep in mind that early detection is the key. We wish you live life and that you live strong. Ladies, as we sum up this session, the one thing we will have to recognize is that we don't know the path that each of us will have to go. The Lord knows because he created us, but we don't know. But whatever journey that you're taking, know that you do whatever you can do to help yourself. Listen to your doctors, and then you really have to trust God, who really is the one in control of all things. I've met persons who they're going through cancer journey and they don't even believe in God and don't even want him a part of their lives. But I am sure for both of you and for others, when you're threatened with a life, when you have a life-threatening illness, that is the time when you have to pause, when you have to take a look at your life. You begin to examine what is important in your life and the priorities. And in all things, every day is a gift because you don't have to die from cancer. It could be something else. But each day that you're alive, you take it as an opportunity to fight and to do what you can do. And more importantly, though, you probably don't realize how you're impacting the lives of other people. And that's pretty much what's happening. The things that happen to us, yes, we don't like it, but it does not happen for us alone. It happens for us to be able to help others along the way. So with both of you, I'm sure you will be surprised to know how many people you've informed and probably helped this evening. Some question asks, is recommended age for women's first colonoscopy? Normally, they don't recommend colonoscopy until 50 or thereafter. But if you have a family history of it or you suspect something is wrong, that is a discussion you need to have with your doctor and ask, okay, is this the time? Maybe I should do one or could do one, that sort of thing. But normally they don't recommend colonoscopy until age 50 and thereafter. And guess what? If your colonoscopy is fine after 70, they don't even recommend that you do it any longer. For me, I have to do it every 2 years because of the gene that I carry, and I have a high risk for developing colonoscopy also. So I have to pay attention to my body in terms of that and try to do my screenings. I'm scheduled every 2 years at this point. So, we're still alive, we're here, and we're grateful and thankful, and we can do whatever we need to do to encourage and support others and to continue the journey, because it's a journey. Death is inevitable for everybody, whether it's cancer or not. But because this is the process we're in, we're grateful and thankful, and we're going to fight. So ladies, continue to fight. Andrea, you're young. The Lord knows what lies ahead for you. And I'm sure this is going to be a testimony for many other younger persons and even older persons in the community. And Denise, we got your back. So continue your journey and continue your struggles. And we all have to remember to pray for each other, support, and to encourage each other. To our listening audience, I want to say thank you again for watching this evening. This has been a talk on colorectal cancer. And as you know, colorectal cancer is a major one in our country. And it's such a serious, life-threatening illness because, yes, as Lady said, by the time it's detected, it's advanced in some cases. And they have to continue their fight and their journey. I want to say thank you to my husband, who is always in the background doing those extra things for me to make the show possible, and to my son, who helps with the tech work at times, and to our listening audience. Thank you for listening in, and thank you for supporting the show. And we'll be back again next month to talk about Cancer Month, because May is considered All Cancer Month, and therefore we will be talking to the Cancer Society of the Bahamas, and they will be updating us on the different types of conditions, and also the Cancer Society and what they do in our country. So once again, have a wonderful evening to you all. Let's continue to stay safe and to practice social distancing, because of course the virus is increasing in our country and even around the world. And so we must do whatever we can do to stay safe. Thank you once again for listening, and good evening to all.
Good evening.
Good evening.